Hello again, welcome to my channel once again. It's Peter Elgar from Brentwood, Essex, England, and another one of my loan cameras. Takes film, because I specialise in film, especially old cameras and old film. This was loaned to me by a camera club friend, and I couldn't find another good review on the whole of YouTube about this camera, which is in the Olympus OM series, and it's the OM30. So what was special about this OM30, which it came out in 1983? Well, it was designed for use with one of the very first autofocus lenses, and Olympus made a 35 to 70 autofocus lens. In order to get the motor in it to work, you had to have 5 batteries stacked here in a stack, LR44s, and you fit them in there, and then you push the little flap down, and then you have to pull a little lever, which you need good fingernails to get that, and to get the batteries out again. But of course they're like rare as hen's teeth, these autofocus lenses. I've never seen one. It came with a 50mm Olympus Zuko Auto S multi-coated lens, 1.4. So we'll shoot what I can tell you about it that I've discovered about this OM30. It has the standard Olympus shutter speeds around the throat of the camera here. Like, for example, you're on the OM1 and OM2, they're around the lens bit here, it's down the side. That's one difference. You change it by pressing on 2 little black tabs. You press and you turn that, and to change the shutter speed. There we are. Now that's on 60th of a second at the moment. You put it back. Now it's on 1,000th of a second, and that is used for when you want manual exposure. Now this control here, it's for a special accessory, again to do with the autofocus lens which fits in there, so we can't tell you what that is. This F4 and F2, it's a little strange control which even in the instructions they don't tell you exactly what it does, but I think it's to choose the maximum aperture of the lens that you're going to use. It's really for the use with, again, with the autofocus. Although this is a 1.4 lens, it only has F2, and then it springs back to F4. See, I have set it to F2, but it springs back to F4. Doesn't seem to do anything with the ordinary Olympus lens. This little red signal is for the delayed action here. And then we have the standard Olympus method for rewinding your film. You turn this in the direction of the arrow. Again, you need good fingernails. And we'll see if we can get it to work when I put a film in. Don't turn at the moment. On the top, you will have your other controls, which is slightly different for OM2 and OM1. The choose a film speed in here, in your ASA rated films, on the box, or if you can down rate it if you want to and give it less than what it says. Again, it's in a very small little window, so you need good eyesight. And I've got that, that's set to 100 at the moment. That was the old film I had set it. So if you want to change it, you lift it up, you change it to whatever you want. So we change it now. That says, we'll say what says that. We'll change it like that. Let's see what that's saying now. That says 200. But once you've changed your ASA, you must make certain you put this back against the little black line there. Otherwise you'll find everything's wrongly exposed, because this is your exposure compensation dial for when you use automatic exposure. So then you switch on here, and by turning this little lever, that's on B for brief time, that's on M manual, that's off, then beep, battery check, it beeping, automatic exposure, off. So we put it to manual exposure at the moment. Then, oh, this is the self timer. You have to push this in the direction of the arrow. Again, it can be a bit stiff. And then, again, you need good fingernails to do it. But there we are. And it beeps. There we are. It beeps, and about 10 seconds later, the shutter will go. The lens has already stopped down to the taking aperture. Oops, and it makes a funny squeaking sound when it's about to fire. So how do you use manual and automatic? Well, manual exposure is done by balancing the shutter speed with an aperture. Looking in the viewfinder, you choose a shutter speed that you want. Say I had it set to 125th. It was in poor light. And then I move this aperture until the shutter speed I set stop flashing. And that stopped flashing when it was set to f4. So it was 125th and f4 in poor light for 100 ASA. Now, what you do with manual exposure, you always point it down towards the ground or to a neutral tone subject. You have to recognise the subject you're taking. Don't get a lot of white or a lot of black in, otherwise it'll be underexposed. For automatic exposure, you've got to think again. We turn this round to automatic exposure. Oh, there we are. Now, when you're photographing, the automatic exposure is set to f8. That doesn't come into play. But what happens is, it measures the light through the lens according to the ASA. How strong is the light, and it will give you a shutter speed which balances with f8. This is quite slow. It's about 3 seconds, you see, and we whack it up to 2.8. That's quite fast. Yes, that's much faster. Whack it up to 1.4. That's much faster. Whack it back to f11, you'll get a long shutter speed. 1 a second, 2 a second, 3 a second, 4 a second, 5, 4 seconds. Now when you are taking pictures of subjects which have a lot of white, you have to give it plus exposure here. And that's the normal setting I use for snow scenes with some sunshine, or brilliant scenes at the beach with white sand. You use the full compensation, otherwise your subject will be underexposed. If you're photographing a person on a stage against a black background, you use minus exposure compensation here. So that's only used when you have it for automatic exposure. When you use manual exposure, you choose where you want to get the light reading from. And then you've got to use your head to look at the subject, recognise the subject. So we're going to load the film now. Here we are, going to get an old film. This is quite easy, the Olympus, to load. It goes in very easy, like that. Pull out the little leader, stick it into one of these little slots here, and make certain it's on either on off or manual exposure. There we are. Wind it and watch what happens here. So it goes against the little cogs. Yes, it's nice and tight. Flick it over. Watch the rewind knob is moving. Yes. And then take one more frame. That's moving. That's correct. Although it doesn't show number 1, it says S. You will get 39 frames out of your 36 film and 27 out of a 24 film. So when you come to the end, this is where you turn the Olympus system. There it works now, you see, because I've got a film in. Then you can rewind into the cassette. Go click. Leave some out. It's easier. Leave some out for the processing here. Makes it easier for processing. Now, the only other controls are on the base. You've got a beeping, an on and off for the beep. That's on at the moment. and then that's switching it off. It's a strange little control there. I've never seen that before. These are the ones for your motor wind, Olympus motor wind. I've not used it with an Olympus winder. That's on the base. So that's about it. I'll show you some pictures now. See what you think about this 1.4 lens. Well, there's some pictures of a backlit leaves against Sainsbury's car park. This was at 1.4. Now the leaves are sharp, but the Sainsbury's car park ramp is out of focus. And up here there's a little bit of soft flare from the 1.4 lens. When it stopped down to f4, that flare seems to have cleared up and it's a bit sharper, but your background comes in sharper. So there we are. And my friend here, he's slightly soft because I don't think I focused him correctly, but it's 1.4 in Brentwood High Street. But at f4 is much sharper. That's a good sharp lens. These was taken at 125th at f4 in poor light, and I did use I think I used a manual exposure for that because there was a sort of medium tone mushrooms there. That came out all right. But this old shed was at 1.4. The lens is quite sharp. It's good definition on the bricks. The textures are good at 1.4. Well, that's the little rundown on this OM30. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully if my health still keeps going, I'll be able to show you some more things. Keep watching my channel, and thanks for subscribing, and for those of you who support my expenses by buying me a coffee, link down below. I appreciate that. I bought some fresh film actually. Bye bye for now.